What's up again, everybody? Today we are going to discuss a few combos that center around the Uncommon Jubilee from the X-Men First Class set. I've got to start off by saying that this is pretty amazing to get a character with 3 playable rarities. Each rarity of Jubilee has a compelling and interesting ability that encourages you to build around it while providing the design space to be creative and use different pieces to achieve the goals. To prove that, we will use the Uncommon Jubilee as our win condition and place 2 different engines or teams around her in order to trigger her ability and win the game. Looking at the Uncommon Jubilee, she is a 2-cost bolt character with an 021, 133, 243 side, and an ability that reads, when an opposing character die is KO'd, spin this character up a level, and an awaken keyword that says, deal 1 damage to target opponent. For some further clarification on the awaken keyword, awaken is an ability that triggers when a die with the keyword spins up 1 or more levels. Important for us is that you get to use the effect for each individual die that spins up, so if you have 2 copies of the same die active and they both spin up, you will get 2 instances of the awaken effect. With this in mind, our goal is to get several Jubilees out and to spin them all up to deal damage to our opponent. Now there are several ways to do this, so let's take a look at a few of our options and build around them. An easy option is to slap on the mutation global and spin a mask to spin up and spin down 2 different Jubilee dice. Assuming that both dice aren't sitting on level 1 or level 3 already, you can pay a mask to spin 1 Jubilee down to spin the other up and trigger the die's awaken keyword. Then you can use the global again to basically do it in reverse, spinning the other one down and the other one up to trigger the other die's awaken keyword. In this setup, you deal 1 damage for each mask that you pay to use the global. The logical next step would be to then just add on the cosmic cube to up the damage output to 3 per mask. With that setup, you only need to pay 7 masks under a cube's effect to win the game. So in this iteration of the team, we have a huge number of slots free and open to help make this combo work. Our next consideration is how to gather up all these masks quickly and easily. What form of ramp can we use to solve this problem? I elect for the popular new form of ramp from the X-Men set, Mimic Ramp. Mimic is a 3-cost mask character with an ability that reads, when fielded, copy the printed attack and defense of target character die. When a copy of that character die is fielded, draw 2 dice from your bag and prep them. This version of Mimic is really good, and the goal with Mimic is to have a sidekick in the field and then field a Mimic die using his ability to target the sidekick, copying the stats, and allowing you to prep 2 dice each time another sidekick gets fielded. A great pairing with Mimic is the new rare Professor X run specifically for the global that allows you to pay a mask to field a sidekick from your used pile. This global is insane as it allows you to lower the number of dice in your used pile, trigger the Mimic ability to prep dice from your bag because the card says field a sidekick die, and to give you a potential blocker and attacker all in one, all for 1 mask. These 2 cards are made for each other, and I'm sad that I don't actually have the rare Professor X. Looks like I need to go online and buy that. The last 4 slots are wide open, and you can take it a few different ways. I personally like the idea of this being a control team, so I'd throw on 2 forms of blanking in Shriek and Dwarf Wizard. This allows you to control your opponent's blankers and keep their win con in check while you also get yours set up. So you can buy these pieces first, feel comfortable, then set up the 2 Jubilees and start doing the Mimic thing. As for the last 2 slots, I threw on 2 energy fixers for bolts and masks. Fixing for masks allows you to roll a sidekick, field it for the Mimic Ramp, spin it down via the global to a mask, pay the mask to trigger the Professor X global to field another sidekick from your used pile, and trigger another Mimic Ramp. The bolt fixer is just there so that we can fix for Jubilee early. I played a few games with a similarly built team and missed the bolt at a few key moments to buy Jubilee and stay ahead, and so I tacked this on to prevent that. It's less important on this build of the team though, so feel free to swap it out for something else. It comes in handy a bit more on our second build of the team coming up in just a second. So now we have the 8 team slots filled up. As for the basic actions, obviously we need mutation for the win con, so for the second action, I'll tack on the perennial favorite of resurrection and just jam it in there. We have nothing to do with our shields, and even though Mimic Ramp is super good, ramping 1 is always great when Mimic doesn't trigger. Alright, so this is the more competitive version of this team. This can have some decent success in a more competitive scene, as it has enough pieces here to handle some of the tougher win cons out there. Swapping out one of the energy fixers for either Scarlet Witch or Bishop based on what worries you most helps even more. While this version of the team is definitely functional, the openness of the win con means that we can really up the craziness and fun of the team and take it in a more casual direction as well. So let's do that. So tearing it back down to just Jubilee and Cube, let's just change the spin up trigger. Rather than using Mutations Global to trigger our win con, let's swap it out for With Great Power from the Amazing Spider-Man set. It is a 3-cost action die that spins up all of your characters 1 level, and on the double burst it spins all of them up to level 3. Now instead of paying 1 mask to trigger 1 Jubilee effect, we can use use one action to trigger all of our Jubilees at the same time. We'll still use the Mimic ramp backbone that we had from the first team build, Mimic, Professor X, and even Resurrection. We'll keep Merlin on here as well because now we can bolt fix for Jubilee and for the next card that we're adding's ability. And this is where things get fun and interesting because we are using action dice to boost our damage output and to trigger the ability. We're going to include super rare Lady Deadpool onto the team. She is a 5-cost shield character with the ability that reads, while Lady Deadpool is active, when you use an action die, you may pay a bolt. And if you do, you may immediately use the ability of that action die a second time with the same number of bursts. So essentially, when we get her out in the field and use a cube, we can pay a bolt to use a second copy of the cube's effect, essentially using 2 cubes. We can also double the with great power action, triggering 2 spin-ups on our Jubilees. We'll cop out and throw on Shriek because even though this is a casual team, it's no fun if our win condition is totally shut down on turn 2 or 3. And for the final team slot, we will need a way to spin back down our Jubilee dice if they hit their level 3 so that the Awaken keyword can trigger again. And for that purpose, we will add Giganta from the Green Arrow and Flash set for the global that lets us pay 1 generic energy to spin down one of our character dice. So looking at this team versus the other one, this team has more moving parts, more setup, and less flexibility, but man, this is a fun team to play in a casual setting. It scratches the itch of putting together the puzzle, and when you can put it all together and pull it off, you get rewarded with some seriously big damage. The goal will be to get out 2 to 3 Jubilees, get out a Lady Deadpool, make sure all of your Jubilees are pretty low level, and then use a bunch of cubes thanks to Lady Deadpool's ability and just the fact that cubes are cheap, and then play 1 with great power to deal a ton of damage because all of those Jubilees spin up, all of them deal damage, and all of that damage gets upped by the number of cubes that you played. In fact, I recently played 2 games with this version of the team and had a ton of fun with it, and I plan on commentating over those videos and uploading them soon. So there you have it. There are 2 different teams based around the same piece, one more competitive, one more fun and casual. Let me know what you think about both of these teams and what changes you would make to either of them or both of them. As always, everyone, thanks for watching.